Hello, California. I'm Larry Elder, also known as the Sage of South Central, and this is the launch of my campaign. I am in it to win it. Our first task, recall our arrogant governor, Gavin Newsom. Newsom imposed the most restrictive COVID mandates in the country and then proceeded to ignore them when it came to him. Californians lost their jobs, their businesses. Kids lost a full year of in-school education, all in defiance of the very science that Newsom and his cohorts said they would follow. I will make clear that I am the man to replace him. I'm a native Californian, but I grieve at what's happened to my state. And I've got common sense, something sadly lacking in Sacramento, especially under this smug, corrupt governor. This is a change of heart for me.
I subscribe to the Walter Cronkite philosophy. I love to serve. I hate to have to run. I just don't believe I have the stomach, the temperament, the personality, the drive, the willingness to deal with these doofi in Sacramento for the next several years of my life. Have I exhausted all of my excuses yet?
Newsom has made those excuses irrelevant. Here's why I've done a 180. Newsom and his cohorts are destroying a state that was once a beacon of hope and prosperity, a state once admired for its public schools, its dynamic economy, and above all, its people who strive for racial harmony, pursuing a common cause. Newsom and his cohorts are literally dismantling brick by brick the very virtues and values that made California great. He's surrounded by an army of radicals for whom climate change is a religion and growth and development a villain. Because of their fierce opposition to growth, the average home in California costs 150% more than the national average. Because of their radical environmentalism, they oppose building the infrastructure necessary to supply consistent energy and water to a population of 40 million, leaving us with the crumbling system built way back in the 70s to support a population half that size. Crime, homelessness, the outrageous cost of living, and Newsom's arrogance in handling COVID with headstrong mandates that imposed the most severe lockdown of all 50 states. Ignoring science, he caved to the demands of the teachers' union while still paying teachers, kept kids out of school while sending his to private schools. And the radicals' assault on public safety demonizes police officers just trying to do their job. Firefighters risk their lives fighting infernos made more frequent and deadly because of poor state land management. The Sacramento elite enables criminals by allowing them to avoid conviction and incarceration. I will never sacrifice public safety just to appease a corrupt minority that chants, "Defund the police," and that falsely accuses police officers of systemic racism. But Newsom and his cohorts, they will. I will never surrender the safety of the streets to the insanity of no cash bail, but Newsom and his cohorts will. I will never approve releasing 20,000 prisoners under a COVID early release program, knowing too many will reoffend, but Newsom and his cohorts, well, they just did. I will work for a fair and firm bail policy. You see, when you reduce the chances of a criminal being caught, convicted, and incarcerated, guess what? Crime goes up. This isn't rocket science, it's just common sense. And I will never sacrifice the dreams of just one California child to appease teachers' unions who denounce parents and families as white supremacists simply because they want their kids back in school. I will never support taxpayer-funded schools that indoctrinate children with hate, that teach white kids are oppressors and black kids are victims. What happened to judging each other on the content of their character? You see, our national motto is E pluribus unum, out of many one, and I believe that with all my heart and soul. The first step on the journey from poverty to the middle class? Education. How bad are the schools? Well, it's as if you opened a restaurant, hung a sign outside saying, "Come on in, just don't eat the food." I mean, without decent schools, there can be no equity, the radicals' favorite word. The answer? School choice. Let the money follow the child. We have choice in higher education. Why not K through 12? Well, it's because the powerful teachers' unions literally own Newsom. I'm going to fight for charter schools that so terrify Newsom and his cohorts. My dad came to California back in 1945. He worked 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets, before opening up a small restaurant that he ran into his 80s. My dad believed hard work would achieve the California dream. Earning a living, raising a family, owning a home. My father, a World War II Marine vet, was born in Athens, Georgia, in the Jim Crow South at the beginning of the Great Depression. He never even knew his biological father, but he did not use that as an excuse. My parents scrimped, saved. He and my mom raised 3 boys. Believe it or not, on my father's income, my mom was able to be a stay-at-home mom until my youngest brother Dennis went off to middle school. I just checked with Zillow, and the home my dad bought in South Central, which is still in the family, is now worth $600,000. Good news for my family, but an absolute disaster for anybody trying to follow the same path that led my dropout dad into the middle class. I'm a Pico Union South Central boy. I walked those hard streets. My 2 brothers and I were motivated by the dreams and goals of my mother and my father, who always taught us this great truth. Hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And finally, my parents taught us that no matter how hard we worked, how good we were, how we deal with bad things that happen will define our character. But their California, well, it's fading fast. And the way to restore optimism is to end Newsom's anti-growth policies that drive up the cost of housing. And even if you're lucky enough to own a home, crime is way up, especially in urban areas. And your public schools, well, they underperform compared to the rest of the nation, despite more and more money spent on education. I've got a news flash for Mr. Newsom. Hurting the homeless in barracks or hotels is simply warehousing our brothers and sisters who need true compassion to return them to self-sufficiency. Religious institutions and nonprofits are ready, willing, and able to deal with the underlying problems of homelessness in a compassionate way. Government should empower them, not impede them. California is the worst state in which to do business. Why? High taxes, overregulation, poor public schools, and hostility to job-creating small business. Now, let me tell you what I will do. I will always be with you. If you can't go into a restaurant, neither will I. If you must wear a mask, so will I. I will never use my emergency powers to confine and control any Californian without a clear, science-based explanation. We are adults who can think for ourselves and do not need to be pushed around by an arrogant governor. Now, the rap on me is that I have no experience in government. And your point is? Gavin Newsom is a career politician from Central Casting who has quote-unquote government experience, and he's a complete disaster. I made it from South Central Los Angeles to an Ivy League university in New England, then a first-ranked law school in Michigan, became a successful trial attorney in Ohio, where I also ran a small business for 14 years before returning to California. For nearly 30 years, I've hosted a Los Angeles-based radio show, now nationally syndicated in over 300 markets. Nearly 1.5 million people listen to me and I to them every day for years. I've learned, I've listened, I've debated, I've heard, and I've grown. And I love this state, and I know you do too. And that is why we're still here. That is why I want you to stay here and to build your family. But to do so, we need to take this state back. You see, I want a government that can at least keep people and property safe. Now, in the coming days, I will outline my plans, ideas, and goals. Newsom brags about a surplus, never mind the $1 trillion in unfunded pensions. You see, if California were a corporation, the Securities and Exchange Commission would go after Newsom for fraud. Californians can connect the dots between his extremist policies and failing schools, brownouts, violent crime, deadlier and deadlier fire seasons, homelessness, businesses leaving the state and taking their jobs with them, and especially the rising cost of living. Imagine. Why are people leaving a state once the envy of the world, with unrivaled climate, mountains, beaches, deserts, forests? We have it all. But Gavin Newsom has declared war on the middle class. Californians know we can do better. The problem is Gavin Newsom. Our arrogant, out-of-touch governor has got to go. And I hope that I'll be the person you choose to be a successor. Don't feel bad for him. He can always retreat to his winery, the one that remained open during the pandemic. The man has got to go. Let's do this together because we've got a state to save.